everyone. Hi, Mark. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Karen. Hi, Keith. I'm just looking at everybody's names. Hi, Mikkel. Try and see them all. Hi, Juan. Hi, Marcia. Good to see you. Hi, Christine. Hi, Brad. Hi, Jessica. Kim. Who else is on? Did I miss anybody? Barry. Mark, I think I said hi to you. Hi, Barry. All right, so we'll get started. I'm so excited to have another retailu coffee chat. There was a bit of mix-up with the Zoom links in some of in the calendar compared to the email. So hopefully everybody followed through with that email this morning. I see all your smiling faces, which is great to see. And we have an exciting one today. We've been going on for like nearly 2 months now, which is incredible. I can see some familiar faces on the coffee chat and also some new faces, which is really nice, and people from all over the globe, which is awesome. So I'll introduce myself. I'm April. I am the founder and president of retailu. I have had a long career in retail and operations. Don't want to say how many decades because it makes me feel like I'm giving up my age, but quite some time. And this is my partner over here, Jane. She's my business partner at retailu. She's going to be helping us facilitate the coffee chat today with questions, and so kind of moderating it. And then we have Dean Correia over here, who we're going to be talking to today, which I'm super excited about. To talk about, like, I've got some questions to ask him, but really the purpose of this coffee chat, if you've been on it before, is to see some friendly retail faces in the middle of your week, stay connected. And the idea when we started was really just to highlight leaders in the retail industry and bring people together, kind of like in a very comfortable, not too formal way. And it's been going quite well. So we're really excited to be back on again. And it's really like for you guys to ask questions, you know, like we've had such a different bunch of people on. We've had people that have owned their own e-com channels. We've had, you know, Solange on from L'Occitane. We've had people that run operations. We had Christine on last week about her career. And this week we have Dean on, which I'm super excited, which is a completely different spin. So I'm going to ask you, Dean, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do, and a bit of your career background would be awesome.
Sure, great. Thanks, April and Jane, for this opportunity. I appreciate the human connection here. I think we're all missing it. Hello, everyone. My name is Dean Correia. I'm based in the Toronto area. My background is 25 years of operations and corporate security, all in Canada, with Gap, Starbucks, and Walmart. So primarily with Gap in operations. And then 13 years with Starbucks, where I helped lead and build the corporate security teams in Canada and Latin America. And then 3 years with Walmart as their director of corporate security. And I've been on my own as a retail security consultant since 2011.
Brilliant. So I met Dean. You know, everybody on this coffee chat every week, we've always got a story to tell of how we met each other, because retail's kind of like that. You meet people randomly. So I met Dean, I don't know, like towards the end of last summer, I want to say. Was it? Yeah.
Yes.
And he was really interested in building an online course and interested in what we were doing at retailu. So Dean is now launching a course on retailu, which we're really excited about, because you're one of our first authors to be kind of showcased. So that's coming up in the next week. So we'll share that with you guys. But that's how I met you. And since then, we've been working together quite closely, haven't we? Trying to get this e-learning course done, which has been an amazing journey, which has been fun. And Jane's been working very closely with Dean, so it's really, really cool. It's interesting how you find these pathways with people in your journey in retail and how you connect. And, you know, sometimes I'm like, I meet people, I'm like, why didn't I know you 15 years ago? You know, but happy to be working with you today. So in the, hi, Jessica. I just see your face. So in the spirit of our coffee chats every week, we always start off with an icebreaker. So we're going to start off with an icebreaker question, because I love questions. If you ever work with me and do any facilitation with me or any kind of coaching, I always start off with like really great questions, create really good conversation. So I'm going to start off with that. And then I will say that as we are going through, like I'm going to ask Dean some questions and really pick his brain today. But I know a lot of people are really excited about this one because of your experience, Dean, and got lots of questions for you on what you're doing and navigating right now, because we haven't really had a COVID focused retailu coffee chat yet. So this is kind of cool. So if you guys have questions as we're chatting, hi Ratish, I can see you all the way from the back. So if you have questions as we're starting to go through, and I'm asking Dean questions, obviously it's a coffee chat, so start writing your questions in the chat, because Jane will just interrupt us and be like, hey, there's a question that came up, and we'll be able to answer them for you. So don't wait until the end, just start writing your questions in already. So I sent Dean a couple of questions. So do you want to ask a question, Dean, and then I'll ask you one of mine?
Sure.
And I don't know what you're going to ask me. So.
Right. What are people usually surprised to find out about you?
That both my parents are American.
Wow.
Yeah, because I have a British accent.
Yes, interesting.
Yeah.
That surprises me.
Oh, does it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm great. I have both passports, so I'm lucky. I'm one of those lucky people that can travel. Well, not travel at the moment, but.
No.
Okay, question for you. What is a goal you plan on accomplishing this year?
To publish the retailu course, of course, workplace violence and avoidance and robbery prevention. And thanks again, publicly to you and Jane for helping facilitate that. So it's definitely something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and very privileged to find the right partnership with you and Jane to do that. And it's going to be a way to give back, I think.
Yeah, we're excited. It's well needed, I think, for store people and teams to have that, and just to have that kind of e-learning piece. And there's so much e-learning out there, but there really isn't a lot built specifically for those retail managers. So I can't wait to get it in front of people. Hi, Sylvie. I just saw you join. Nice to see you again. Okay, so I'm going to just start firing some questions away at you,
Sure.
because I know we've all got a lot of questions on our mind. So tell us about a time. I know that when me and you had talked, we talked about crisis management and things that have happened in your career, and your career is so interesting. So can you tell us about a time in your career when you had to navigate a crisis, and like, what did you learn from it? Because like, we can all learn from this, but I'm sure we can learn from you because you've got so much experience in this.
Right. So just take a step back. I'm really hesitant all my career to use the word crisis. So I always advise people to use another term, whether it's critical incident or whatever it means. There's lots of studies, especially if you're a publicly traded company, that if you use the word crisis publicly or internally, your share price is going to go down anywhere from 5 to 10 points. So use the term critical incident or event as opposed to crisis, because people inherently believe that if you use the word crisis, it's out of control. And so that's something that I always advise. So I would never call something a crisis management plan. I would call it a critical incident plan. So one of the critical incidents that comes to my mind is we had a leadership conference. As I said earlier, I worked with Starbucks, and every year Starbucks would have their annual store manager conference in Seattle. So we had about 350 Canadian store managers, DMs, and home office support system at an event at the Seattle Space Needle. And everything was prearranged beautifully with coach buses to pick everyone up after the event. And the event coordinator got a call probably about half an hour before the event was supposed to close and said that the coach buses were on a wildcat strike. So we had to figure out how to get up 300 to 350 store managers and above safely to their hotels. So I was in the parking lot. I had a team member at the base of the needle and 2 team members at the top of the needle for the event. So I just immediately jumped into the action with my team, called some Seattle cab companies, had them come around to the needle, and we had literally a chain of money from ATM at the top of the needle to the ATMs at the bottom of the needle, just handing Starbucks partners, which is the Starbucks term for employees, cash, and giving them $20, having them jump in a cab. And from a safety point of view, had to write the name of the cab and the number of the cab and who was in it to make sure they got where they wanted to go. So definitely as a team, we coordinated that quickly and had to really, really think on our feet.
Wow, that's crazy. I can't even imagine doing with that. So it's like, that's a massive undertaking and coordination of people, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we were lucky that the Seattle taxi companies were very compliant. I mean, from a business point of view, they were chomping at the bit to get those cabs.
Oh yeah, I bet. So what did you learn from that experience that you took on to other situations?
Yeah, I'm constantly amazed by the human spirit. You ask for help, you be vulnerable as a leader, and people will come through. And I'm constantly amazed, whether it's a serious workplace violence situation or it's something like hey, how are we going to get people home? I think as a leader, you have to be vulnerable. I think it's okay to not have all the answers at all times. I think it's okay to ask for help. I'm a
Mm.
huge believer in servant leadership philosophy. It's a course that I took at Starbucks that really impacted me personally and professionally. So I think it's okay to not always have the answers, but let people know that you're confident you will get them an answer in short order.
Mm. And when you talk about servant leadership, can you share a bit more about that? Like you said, you took a course on that at Starbucks, because for some of us on the call, some of us maybe have heard the term
Sure.
servant leadership or are interested in it, or there's different books about different things. So like, what were your key takeaways from that servant leadership course? I'm
Yeah,
interested.
there's so many principles within servant leadership. I'll focus on two. I mean, connecting with people's hearts,
Mm.
and they'll connect with the mission. I mean, give them the real guiding light and the purpose of why they're doing what they do, especially in retail. It's a grind.
Yeah.
The overnight folding parties that we've all had,
Yeah.
the Christmas receiving, 700 boxes at Christmas, and it's a grind.
Yeah.
And some customers aren't nice,
Yeah.
right? So we have to deal with all of that. So just connect the why, I think, is one of the key principles from servant leadership. And then as a
Mm.
leader, lead and get out of the way.
Yeah.
Don't always wait to promote your team when they're perfectly ready for a role. I know I was promoted a couple of times for roles that I wasn't ready for, but again, it's the old, hire for attitude, train for skill mantra, right? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you need to lead and get out of the way and then follow up. Those are
Yeah.
two key principles.
I think I've learned that in my career. Like, when I was younger, maybe, being nervous about hiring and promoting people. But like, as I got more experience, I was like, God, somebody took a chance on me and gave me that role, and I was not ready.
Yeah.
So I think that we're all going to deal with that when we go back as well, because we don't know where our teams are going to be and what's going to happen, right? So
Yeah. And as
that's a
part of our
good point.
legacy, I think we owe
Yeah.
it to our people to develop them. And because if we want to get promoted, we're going to have that next gen,
Mm.
come and take our role. And then depending on what level you're at, there may be a financial reason for do that. If you decide to retire and you have options, you want to make
Yeah.
sure that the company is in good stead, right? So
Yeah.
there's all
Yeah.
kinds of different reasons.
Okay, awesome. So tell us about your current reality in COVID-19 then, because you're the first person that we've really started having this dialogue with, because it was a lot of requests, and you have clients, you said you're working for yourself now, you have your own company. So what's your current reality in COVID-19 with your clients?
Yeah, good question. So I've been focusing on typically for a business continuity plan, you focus on 4 pillars: assess, prepare, respond, recover. With COVID, it obviously, the speed, it felt like sipping from water from a fire hose at some points. I've been focusing on the response and recovery phases.
Mm.
So now most of my discussions have been on the recovery strategy and tactics. We've been dealing with response probably for about 4 to 6 weeks now.
Okay.
And regardless, I think from a response, I'll focus on 2 key elements in the response. Number 1, in any situation, is show your people you care.
Mm.
You're a human being first, and you're an employee of company X. Second, this is not the time to nickel and dime
Yeah.
because people will remember how you treated them.
Mm-hmm.
And think about the complexity when the reopening fully launches and the new normals here, of that complexity plus having to hire 30% of your workforce because you treated them poorly or you nickel and dime them on certain things and they're not coming back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
number 1 has always been show people you care. Number 2, communicate weekly. This is the situation. This is what we know. Here's our employee assistance program number. Here's some government resources and programs that you can take advantage of. Stay tuned. I mean, at Starbucks, I went through 9/11, and this is
Mm.
exactly what we did at 9/11. I'm just duplicating it. But we lost 5 stores that day, that I was responsible for. Thank God no one was hurt or worse. And we didn't know where people were or necessarily where they're going to come back. So, at a certain point in time, we communicated every Monday very simply, and people felt reassured. They felt that we still cared. We still wanted to connect with them. And 92% of those people came back to the Starbucks stores.
When you think about like communicating, because one of the things is I've been invited to be on a call tomorrow with a whole load of US leaders in retail, and they're asking me to talk to them about how you communicate, right, in these times, and how you get hold of people. And I was putting some thought around it, and I was like, well, there's 3 layers of communication. There's your executive communication, there's your middle management, your multi-site, and then you've got your store management. And your store management is communicating directly with employees, with customers, potentially when we go back. So it's kind of like they're asking me to put some thought around like those 3 pillars of leadership, and you know, defining factors of communication and what's going to be needed. So in your experience, especially going through that with Starbucks, do you have any like key, like you say communicate weekly, but like what kind of key, you know, advice can you give us in terms of if you were going to advise somebody on that, what would key advice would you be giving them specifically around that?
Yeah, I would keep the communication really simple. I'm a big fan of focusing on the big three and nothing else. I think as human beings, we can only execute or remember three key messages at any one time. And I would have that message wrap around your mission. I've always found throughout my career that whenever times are tough, go back to what your company's mission and guiding principles are and make every decision, every key communication aligned with that. Again, in a servant leadership fashion, that will connect with people's hearts, and everybody's aligned because there's only one company mission statement. So whether you're communicating at whatever level from whatever area of the globe, if that communication is aligned with your mission, then it should be pretty simple and straightforward for everyone to execute in their specific role.
That's really good advice, especially if you're thinking about how to say something, what to say, what's important. And I like the fact that you said three things, because working in operations for years, one of the biggest things is everybody always used to say to us, how do we streamline communications to the stores? It's one of those things. It's like, how do we get this simplified when we've got 25 messages? And sometimes it's just better to have three versus have the 20. You know, what's the most important, right? Like,
and it's very difficult. I completely agree, April. And same thing with strategy, right? So, I mean, if you focus on the big three, I mean, it took me a long time to get my teams to, and I challenged them when we were developing our strategy. If the program or initiative doesn't align with the company's mission, then we're not doing it. And it took a long time to get people there, because if there's ever times are tough like this and you have to cut back budget and you have 18 different initiatives on the go and none of them are aligned to the mission, that's going to be very easy to cut or freeze or claw back. But if you have three key deliverables and they're all aligned at driving the company's mission, then those are defensible from a people, process, and technology point of view. And it's going to be a tough choice in terms of which ones to cut back if and when you're asked to cut back.
That's good advice. You talked about that, and then you talked about, you haven't talked about response, right? Well, response, you're talking about communication. Yeah, recovery. Do you want to go on to recover? Or is there anything else in response that we should know?
No, I think we're on to recovery for the most set, either, you know, actually or from a mindset point of view. So I've got a lot of thoughts on recovery. I'll hit on a key one. I think COVID-19 is here to stay. I think I hear people talking about it going away. It's not going away. It's a disease. It's another disease that we're going to manage. If you look at the Spanish flu, it came back in the fall, even more deadly. So I think it's just something that we're going to be have to be conscious of and manage from an infectious disease point of view. From a retail point of view, I think a lot's going to change. I think the three things that I think are going to change from a retail point of view would be supply chain. I think as a retailer, you really need to take a look at your supply chain and source as locally as possible, and be less reliant out of country for obvious reasons like this. I have some clients that are Canada locally sourced, and they're doing much better than ones that are sourcing outside of the country for their goods, and it's a challenge. I think number two, mental health and well-being. I think people are going to be more and more reliant, and we're going to have to do a better job as retailers of engaging our teams and publicizing mental wealth, engagement scores, engagement surveys, and making them aware of what resources are available. And then number three is along the same lines, are office operations. I mean, what are office operations going to look like? Are you going to do temperature checks? Are you going to space the desks 6 feet apart? One of my clients had to have 3 people in the office just to handle payroll checks because they were all manual. Right. So as much electronic payroll deposit, accounts payable, accounts receivable payments, contactless payments, I think are going to be here to stay, which is going to be a criminal's dream, because I'm going to steal April Sabral's credit card and it's going to be contactless payment. And I'm going to go to town at a lot of our great retailers that we have on the phone here and be off to the races. So, I mean, it's a lot to think about. I think the plexiglass shields are here to stay. I don't think they're going to ever be removed.
Wow, that's just fascinating to think like that, isn't it? That they're never going to be removed. I was actually thinking that when I was in the grocery store the other day, that's just there now. It's like, they're not going to take them down. They're going to be there forever and a day, right?
Yeah, and I think you're also going to have to update your work from home policies and your sick pay policy. I think when you're attracting and retaining talent, it takes a very different skill set today to work from home well and
Yeah.
perform from home well
Hmm.
than, some people can do it and love it, and some people really struggle with that autonomy. So I think a lot's changing from an HR and talent
I
management point
think
of view as
Jane has
well.
a question. Yeah. Do you have a question, Jane, or not yet? Okay, because I can't see the chat. I just saw Sylvie.
And then from a risk point of view, I think one of the key things that I'm talking about, and as an industry, we don't have this figured out, is what does the work from home as an extension of the office, what does that look like from a risk point of view?
Right.
So there's a couple of cases in the US right now where people have been forced to work from home. People trip at home, break their ankle, twist their ankle. Is that a workman's compensation point of
Oh
view?
my
What
God,
what
yeah.
about workplace violence?
Hmm.
Because this is now my home office. So how does workplace violence, how does sexual harassment, what does all that look like as I'm working from home? There's a
Yeah.
lot of questions to be
Yeah,
asked about that.
somebody actually asked me yesterday if I could write a blog post or do a lesson or something on remote management, because being in operations for the last however long, the last 10 years being multi-site management, and some of you on the call, you can relate to this, managing remotely is what we do. It's
Right.
kind of normal. But then there's all these other people that are in the office situation that really don't know how to manage remotely. And I've had stories of like, somebody's boss is like having a morning meeting at 9 o'clock and then a recap at 6 o'clock. And then by 9 o'clock in the morning, the person's like, why are they having another call with us? We just recapped it at 6 o'clock last night, right? And like, as a remote leader, we put a lot of trust in our people and then set really clear expectations and have ways to follow up and hold people accountable remotely. Like I've done that for the last 10 years, and you build these things in. But I think that the people are going to need a lot of help with that if people are going to work remotely. The other
Yeah.
thing I was watching yesterday, like as I was cruising on Facebook, was a guy that had come out of a grocery store in the US and posted on Facebook how, they'd made him put a mask on to go into the store. Then he took it off. Then they got mad at him. Anyway, long story short, he was a very well put together guy, not yelling or screaming or anything like that. But like his freedom of choice was he doesn't want to wear a mask. And the staff like kicked him out of the store and then called the cops on him and got him taken off the property for trespassing. There he is on camera in front of the store with the name of the brand in the background saying, these associates, it's not their fault. They said it was just management that did it. And I was like, oh my God, this goes back to how are we instilling confidence in all the people in the stores of how to deal with coaching in situations like this.
Yeah.
Coaching to selling behaviors now with social distancing, like, right, there's all these questions that we have. And when I was watching that, I was like, that video is going viral, right? And so again, that's like, how does that impact your brand? And I think people have a lot of personal perspectives on COVID-19, right? Like everybody's reading
Right.
so many different things. So it's such a personal journey for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. So I think, two questions as a business owner you should ask about everything you do from a recovery point of view is A, is it aligned with our mission? And B, does it give customers and staff confidence to come to my business? Because you can have the best product and service in the world, but if I don't feel confident getting on a plane, if I don't feel confident in buying clothes from your store or eating in your restaurant, I'm not coming. And your staff's not coming. Because their loved ones at home are saying, don't go to work, don't go to work, don't go to work.
That's it.
And then, all that effort, time, and money is for naught. So I think it's all about giving people confidence, giving your staff confidence, because they're obviously your best brand ambassador.
Yeah.
To deliver the service and the goods that you want every day.
Yeah. Jane, is there any questions in the queue yet? No, so we can keep going. I can't see the
Keep going.
chat.
They're all very quiet today. You must be covering everything.
Good, we're doing a good job, Dean. Awesome, that's great. So I have another question for you then, which is not COVID-19 related, but anyway, I'm just gonna start asking you some leadership questions, because I'm always interested in talking to people about their leadership journey, because that's what I'm super passionate about. So what's one of your defining leadership moments in your career?
I would have to say, I can't choose one, but I would have to say there's four of them that stick out. I've had the displeasure of dealing with 3 workplace homicides.
Oh, wow.
And one workplace death. So which has framed everything I do. My big, hairy, audacious goal is to keep people safe and have your loved ones return. I mean, I have loved ones that work in retail. We all have loved ones that work in retail. So those are my 4 defining moments, and having to deal with those situations and go to funerals and talk with loved ones. And then from a criminal court point of view, deal with that process as well. Those are my my defining moments. I mean, and what I've learned throughout all of those is just because you've been with the company for a day or 10 years, or you have the title of frontline sales associate or CEO, doesn't mean you're going to handle a situation well or not well. So don't assume. As we said earlier, people will really rise. You might be surprised at who you have on your team and how you can handle them. And also conversely, realize that people are human and they're not robots. And if somebody needs a break, give them a break. Because we don't know what everyone's personal story is when they bring it into a situation. So
that's very true.
Those leadership moments.
Yeah, it's interesting whenever I ask that question to people, because depending on where you are in an organization or what your experience in your career is, it can be so different for everybody. And I've never had anybody tell me that before. So it keeps it in perspective, right? Like, we're not all invincible. And right now, it really is, no matter what area of the business you're working in, whether you're in sales and ops, whether you're doing what you're doing, whether you're working in marketing, merch, whatever, it's all about people, right? It always comes back to people and the way that we respond in any given situation versus react, right?
Right.
Totally is.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so we do have a question here. Now, this is from Barry. As a fellow risk security professional, what is the toughest rub point that comes from trying to work with and apply security risk solutions in a retail environment in today's context with the COVID?
Yeah, good question, Barry. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. And I think my answer to that would be, we're often judged as security professionals by the event that doesn't happen. And it's from a metrics and deliverables point of view, sometimes it's tough because, no news is good news, quote unquote. But I think from a retail point of view, as security professionals and everyone on this call, it's really, really important to remember that we're business enablers first, with an expertise in security, IT, HR, operations second. And everyone's role is to drive the mission and the company's purpose every day. So I think if we can keep that in point and learn the business, for me, I used to always ask different people from different functions to come to my team meetings. I used to always, go to other team meetings. My team and I, at Starbucks, we'd work the bar. At Walmart, we'd work the toy aisle during Christmas, because as a leader, when you're developing strategies for retail, you have to know and walk in their shoes. And strategies were more successful that way. And we got more respect from the field when we were able to walk into a store, talk their language, understand their challenges, and really, let them know that we were there as a support service for them.
Yeah, I can't echo that more. Just being somebody that grew up through the stores, the amount of times I would sit in meetings and just, and I can see Ron nodding, because me and you have had a very similar career path. And I would sit in meetings and be like, what? Do you think the customers actually, that's what they say? Or like, do you think that's really what goes on in a store? And I would put some programs in place and like go work in the store. And I think that's going to be really important in the recovery piece as well, is for people that are in the office in the support functions, like maybe they didn't have time to go into the stores before. Right. And I know that we're going to be slimmer headcounts, but I would certainly say now more than ever, we're starting up with a new reality. And I think we need to go in it like it's a new business. Yes, there's going to be people that are customers that are coming back, or staff that have been here before, but it's a new time. So go in with a fresh set of eyes in a new business, like when you start a new job and you're just like, like what's happening, and learn. Because the other thing is, I was talking to Jane about this morning, people will have been off for 3 or 4 months, right? Potentially. And I know that people that work in stores, if they take a 2-week vacation, which never happens, because they only ever get one, that they forget passwords and things and how to use things. So I think it's not only like mask training and like everybody's talking about cleaning, but like, what about the fundamentals that make you really good at your job to help a customer that you may have forgotten now because you haven't been doing it for so long, because you're not repeating it every week? And I think we need to remember that stuff. and not just oversee that and assume that when people come back after 4 months, they know how to use a register. Because if I haven't been doing it for 4 months, I might not remember how to do that return.
Yeah, that's a great point, April. I would actually, really subscribe to the KISS principle, and don't make it complicated when the new normal arrives. Stick to your core, keep it really, really simple. It's almost like day one. It's almost like you're opening a new business again. So think about what you did when you opened the business and go back to those simple days, because you're right. People may not remember how to operate a cash register, or all the features and benefits. Yeah, all the features and benefits of every product that we have in the stores and every garment. So keep it really simple for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking that through this morning when I was thinking about like, what do we need to really think about? I was like, oh yeah, I might not remember my passwords or something. It's a simple thing, but it can create a real havoc in the store if you don't remember to go through that. So Jane, I can see some of the questions popping up.
So we've got another one from Ron here. So we kind of touched on it, but how do you see the continued use of PPE on the retail sales floor and changing ops policies? So how do you see that going?
Yeah, I think the PPE is here to stay as well, and I think it will be something that we're going to offer to our store associates and restaurant associates, and it's going to be dependent on their comfort level and also the information that we're getting from public health. But I think the markers for social distancing on the floor, I don't think they're going to go away. The face shields, I think they're going to be very specific, and it depends on every individual associate's comfort level. And I think our job as leaders is to give them options and tools to do their job safely and confidently, and let them make the decision. I mean, I have somebody who owns a restaurant business, and if you force restaurants, as an example, to social distance tables 6 feet apart, their capacities at least hit 50%. And some of them can't survive. So are there going to be plexiglass shields in between tables in fine dining restaurants so that we're still 4 inches apart, but we're literally like fish in fish bowls and have a big plexiglass shield? I mean, I don't know, because you have to weigh, we're all, leaders and lead with our hearts, but I mean, we're in business to make a profit as well. So it's easy it's all well and good to say, yeah, just social distance the table 6 feet apart. But if I can't pay my rent, or I'm going to go out of business, then there's got to be other solutions that are going to be devised.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We have another one here from Ritesh, and he's asking about the health and safety operations and the norm, what will be norm, and like especially in the cosmetic retails with samples and testers, but I think we can expand in that to fitting rooms and trying on, and anybody touching anything. Are we going to be running around with disinfectant when anybody touches a hanger? What are we going to do? How's this going to look?
Yeah, so I've been having some discussions on samples. I think samples are going to be one and done. I think that the samples are going to be smaller. You're going to get to take them home. I think from a food and beverage point of view, it's going to be, samples with the lid on it, individual samples. It's going to change a lot in regards to samples for sure. There's no doubt about it. And I think from a PPE point of view, you're going to have to monitor your supplies, because some employees will make the decision to take it for their home use and steal it. Because hand sanitizer, gloves, masks, you have to inventory those on a daily basis would be my recommendation.
Interesting. Wow. Jane, any other questions?
No, I'm okay.
Okay. All right. It's 2:05. So I've got a couple, just like one more question for you before we start wrapping up. So, again, back to leadership, right? Because right now, the responsibility falls on all of us as leaders at every single level to be able to work together and overcome this and come up with the best decisions. And I think things like this is great because you can just jump on a chat and hear different people's perspectives. And sometimes it's difficult when you're the leader that's got to make those decisions. And, you're kind of like, what decision do I make? And I think problem solving, I think critical thinking skills, I think raising tolerance to ambiguity. I think about, just how to deal with conflict, like that situation I watched on Facebook. I can't get it out of my head last night because I felt for the associates in the store that were probably following a policy but didn't really know how to deal with it the best way. So there's all of these things that are happening. So how important is leadership development to you, Dean, and why? And what do you think is going to be really important in terms of, is it going to be the same leadership development competencies that we're going to have to focus on with our population, or is there some highlighted ones you think are coming up, or
Yeah, I think critical thinking, organizational savvy, dealing with conflict, leading from a distance. Those are all going to be really critical thinking and attributes that we're going to look for leaders. But I also think it's really important to not make decisions in a vacuum. And I think that's one of the greatest learnings that I'm hearing out there the last 4 to 6 weeks is surround yourself with advisors. No one's been through this. You know, I don't care if you're the director of the World Health Organization or if you're a president or prime minister. Surround yourself for people that have different thoughts, different ideas, different levels of experience, and collective knowledge will win. Not one person has the answer, but collectively we'll all figure this out and make a decision. If you're waiting for the perfect amount of information or there to be no ambiguity, you're going to be waiting a long time. So make decisions, or else people will criticize you in the court of public opinion, otherwise known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, right? If you don't make a decision. So make a decision, best information that you have with your trusted advisors, and communicate.
Yeah, I think that's key. You know, one thing that used to drive everybody mental when I was in operations was, you know, when you were working with people that had a lack of decision, you know, and didn't know how to make that final call. And it is really difficult right now. So I think that's a good point, just to reach out. The one thing that this has done for people, I think, in the retail community, has opened up things like this where people can come together, whereas before we were very heads down in our own brand and in our own business. And I think this has happened during this time. And I think we need to remember that and like trust each other and like reach out on each other's strengths and like kind of keep building that retail community, which is what I love about Retail U, you know, because it's like kind of like that non-judgment, you know, positive, kind of like supportive group of people that are really, really, you know, focused on developing themselves and others and being better. And I think that's going to help us all in the future, right?
Yeah. Two other risks and risk identification. So regardless of what role you're in, I think it's important for you to all have that risk discussion. I mean, on your annual strategy meetings, when you're talking about sales and talent and supply chain, there has to be a risk component of that discussion, and have all of your functional leaders around the table, because regardless of what function you're in, you're going to have a different attitude and mindset towards risk and what impacts your function. So I really think that hopefully nothing that's going to come out of this is leaders will be asking those risk questions more and more. You know, if you're, I mean, pretty much all of our sales are online these days, right? So that takes, and cash is no longer king. So cash, you know, you're going to save some labor by not having as much cash in your store. However, you're going to really want to harden your online payment systems and your debit and credit card terminals, because the fraudsters are going to increase that risk. And then the number 2 risk would be workplace violence. I think people are going to be coming back to the workplace, and they're going to have a different mindset. They might be disgruntled against your company based on how you handled the situation, or their perception of how you handled it, the government and how their perception of how they handled it, or you're going to be in a different financial state. And, you know, good people make bad decisions. I've been living that throughout my career, and they may be making some decisions they may never have made at the workplace because they're in a different financial state, or their entire family's in a different financial state when they come back.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another bit of a statement here and a question going in from Keith, because especially for the Ontario people here, the Ministry of Labour is adding additional untrained inspectors to target workplace regarding COVID and infection and control protection. So he's just saying there that obviously there's going to be some paperwork that we're all going to have to follow and have. Obviously, we need to make sure we get that in order. And then we're getting a little bit political, but do you agree with Bill Gates that this is our training session for biological warfare?
I have no comment on that. I'm not political at all.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not.
Sylvie, that was a good way to end the chat.
I'm definitely not a virologist or an epidemiologist at all. So.
Me neither. And again, like I said earlier, it's so personal. There's so many things that are out there, and you know, you can get into massive discussions that go left about that stuff. So I'm just trying to stay out of it. Get up, meditate every day, think about what I've got to do to add value to the Retail U community, bring you guys together, and stay out of that realm as much as possible. But I appreciate your comment. All right, awesome. So if there's no other questions, we can start wrapping up, which is great. So it's always supposed to be short and sweet and positive. And so, Dean, thank you so much for being on and being our coffee chat guest. You can find Dean on LinkedIn. Your name is quite unusual, I think. So, because I know everybody's always like, hey, how do we find each other after these chats on LinkedIn? Because we don't put our names. Steve's nodding. Yep, April. You never get people to put their names in the chat. Okay. So if you wanna network afterwards, put your name in the chat so that you can find each other. And with that, I hope you all have a fantastic week wherever you are in the world. And I hope that you got a lot of value out of this. And if you're not a retailu member, then you should be. That's all I'm going to say about that. So thanks, Dean, so much for joining our coffee chat today.
Thank you to you and Jane and the entire community. I know everyone's really, really busy these days, and I appreciate your time and engagement. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So we can all start jumping off. Thank you. Thanks, Ron. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Take
Marcia.
care.
Bye,
Thank
Mikhail.
you.
Bye, Sylvie. Bye, Steve.